Hello, this is Xbox Ahoy, and this is the bonus footage from my time with the S12. In case you were wondering, the emblem this week was in fact the Boards of Canada. They're a Scottish electronic band that I rather happen to be a bit of a fan of. I was gonna do like, I don't know, something from the world of Sega, like a Sonic emblem, but I thought that was a little bit too obvious, and, well, I couldn't be bothered looking up a tutorial, so there you go. In any case, let's get on with the questions. Sky Air says, this gun needs a buff. You know, normally I don't really agree with people who say X should be nerfed or Y should be buffed, but in this case I actually am inclined to agree. The S12 is not a particularly good weapon. I mean, maybe I'm using it wrong, but no, it just isn't as good as the Remington in no real way. The only thing it has over the Remington is consistency at a very close range. I mean, it's entirely possible to miss with the Remington, which will rather cause you a bit of an issue, but no, the Sega just does not have the reach it needs. By way of comparison, my KD with the Remington I think was about 1.7, and with the Sega I think I managed about a 1.2. I think the key crux of the issue is that the Sega isn't really suited to being a primary weapon. I kind of feel as though the Sega needs to be a secondary. If you get what I mean. It's like a, it's basically the Executioner, except it's a little bit better, but it costs 2 points. On account of the fact that you've got to equip the Overkill wildcard. That's really the best role for the Sega. It's a reliable, close-range enemy repellent. It also does have some utility when it comes to breaching and clearing rooms. The fact that you've got multiple shots on tap means you can tackle multiple enemies quite effectively. So it does work in a breach class, which is kind of what I was trying to go for, but there just simply aren't enough points to make the Sega good. Basically, yeah, the Sega needs long barrel, it needs the laser sight to be lethal enough to use, but unlike the Remington, you also need probably fast mags or extended clip to avoid having to reload all the time. So yeah, really, you need about 15, pick 10 points to make a really solid class for the S12, but unfortunately you can't do that. But anyway, if all else fails, you can just run around with the shotguns and lightweight, extreme conditioning and all the rest of it. They are all worthwhile choices, and they certainly don't hurt. Bad Dwarf Necro says, Stu, I saw you talking in some of the clips. Do you ever play with a team when recording? Well, I hesitate to describe the ragtag collection of buddies that I play with as a team, but but yeah, I do play with friends when I'm able. This is helped by the fact that my friends are actually still playing Black Ops 2, unlike End-Up 3. And unlike Black Ops when I was doing them late season. I don't mind playing solo too much. I mean, sometimes, you know, when you're paired with all the less than good players on your side, it can be a little frustrating, but, well, that's what free-for-all's for, isn't it? I do enjoy a spot of free-for-all, although it does kind of weigh you down a bit faster than the team games. All that constant action is good for very consistent clips. I mean, the clips themselves aren't particularly impressive. You aren't going to get like a 4-man spray because you don't get 4 people clustered in free-for-all. But for really consistent, consecutive clips, free-for-all tends to have a pretty good yield. Sun Viper says, from what I know, that's not how you say Sega. It's supposed to be Saiga. You are probably not wrong. I believe, yeah, the proper Russian pronunciation would be something approximating Saiga. But having said that, the most popular American pronunciation is Sega for the sake of simplicity, and also it makes the pun work, which is kind of a critical thing. Actually, speaking of the pun, that was kind of a little bit tricky because Sega uses different slogans in different regions. And, well, some of you might be aware, the Sega Mega Drive isn't called the Mega Drive in America, it's called the Genesis. So I had to kind of formulate a pun that would work for both people who lived in America and people who lived in the UK and people who lived all over the world. So there were three key references. The Supersonic. Sonic is obviously Sega's mascot. I think most people would have got that one. And then the Genesis of your victory. Genesis is, of course, the name for the Mega Drive console in America. A little bit dated, that reference, but I think most people have an awareness of the Genesis in the US. And I'm pretty sure a portion of the international audience have an awareness that the Americans call the Mega Drive the Genesis, so that kind of works. And the final part is actually a UK slogan. It came up at the end of the advert saying, to be this good takes ages, and then the ages span around to reveal, to be this good takes Sega. That was kind of their UK advertising campaign. I believe in America they had something along the lines of Sega does what Nintendo don't, or Nintendo don't. That was it. Which is fine, but it didn't really fit into the pun as well. Anyway, it was fine. It was pretty obvious this time around, and I think most people enjoyed it, so there you go. Sergio WS says, what is your algorithm of picking questions? What, you mean algorithm like I'm some sort of robot? I start with the oldest comments, the ones that all say first, shut up, stop saying first, those ones. And then I sort of work my way until I've got I pick about 20 questions per bonus footage. Generally speaking, I pick the ones that I think are the most interesting, which I don't know how well that works. It seems like I just pick the ones that say stew the most, and, well, anything about beer, really. But generally speaking, if it's interesting, not too silly, and if it's relatively topical, and or I haven't covered it before, then yeah, that's your best chance there. X-Bandits X. What would you say was the hardest gun for you to get gold camo for? Going off on a tangent a bit here, I see a lot of comments saying, oh, I guess you didn't get gold camo with the Sega then, Stu. I did, but as soon as I got gold camo, I had no reason to record anymore, so I was done. I do in fact have gold camouflage with every weapon I've covered thus far. It's just, like I say, with the Sega I'd already been recording for hours. I think I actually stopped recording when I ran out of hard disk space for one, and I just had the 50 kills without perks and attachments left to do. Now, you see, you're not likely to get the best clips when you're running without perks, without attachments. So, I just thought, well, you know what, I have enough footage now. I have hours of footage. So I stopped recording, got those 50 kills necessary, and then obviously unlocked the gold shotgun, and then I went to bed. Anyway, back to the questions. Hardest guns to get gold for so far. The Sega wasn't much fun. The SVU probably the least fun. Yeah, I'm going to say the SVU. That was not fun. As for the easiest, probably the Remington 870. That was pretty gosh darn easy, and the DSL 50 wasn't too much of a challenge. I have an easier time getting bloodthirsties with the shotguns than I do with the sniper rifles, but you've just got to camp a little bit harder, really, with the sniper rifles. Just make sure you're engaging people at a longer range rather than rushing headlong towards the spawn. Everything else, the assault rifles, the SMGs, even the pistols, it's simply a matter of getting kills and taking headshots when you can. I've got to say, I'm not looking forward to some of the special weapons. I don't know, we'll see. I understand the crossbow's a bit of a nightmare on account of the bloodthirsty medal you need to get. Thankfully it's just 1 and not 10, but, well, nevertheless, with only 6 bolts and 5 kills required, it is probably going to be a bit of a, well, let's just say it's going to be less fun. The Flying Pineapple says, you've mentioned Euro Truck Simulator a couple of times in the bonus videos now. Have you thought about uploading some footage to your second channel, like the TDU mini-series? I have, and I'm still trying to work out the best way to record it. For some reason, Fraps isn't giving me the best performance with Truck Sim. I need to mess around with my settings a bit. And I've tried DX Story, but the codec that uses interferes with the codec that my Blackmagic uses. Which means that while DX Story is installed, I can't edit any Call of Duty videos, or any Xbox videos for that matter. But I will fix it, and I probably will do some sort of Euro Truck Sim stuff, because it's a great game and I love it. As a general rule of thumb, I am thinking I might do more live, or sort of, kind of live commentary, like I did with the Test Drive Unlimited 2 series. But for new games as I get them, because, I mean, I buy a fair old few games, and, well, you know, it's a shame not to make a video for them. Now, I don't want to do complete playthroughs, because that involves huge amounts of footage and huge amounts of videos and chopping them all up, and I prefer to do kind of edited highlights rather than just raw hours and hours of footage. If you want a complete playthrough, there are guys out there who do complete playthroughs, and they do a good job of that. Now, I'm thinking with the variety games, I'm probably going to do monolithic videos, like a single video per game. I might even try and get to the habit of doing one a week. Now, I'm thinking what I might do is I might record for a few hours, have a single session, and then I'll condense that down into a 15 to 20 minute video. Maybe a bit shorter, maybe a bit longer, who knows. I've actually recorded, it's some of Doom 3 BFG edition. I bought that recently, just for posterity's sake. And again, I recorded a couple of hours of footage of that, and I used a new microphone. I wanted to get the sound settings right. It's a Lavalier microphone that just clips to the front of my shirt, which is really good because it's, you know, it's almost like it's not there. It's omnidirectional, so you don't have to speak into it. I can just naturally enjoy a video game and clip a microphone and try and be at least moderately entertaining. That's actually one reason I don't want to do an entire playthrough, because trying to force yourself to be entertaining for multiple hours is, well, it's not something you always want to do. Sometimes you just want to zone out and grind some levels. Like, I saw some people asking me, begging me almost, to continue the Test Drive Unlimited 2 videos. It's like, well, you know that game is just really, really repetitive driving. It's really not that interesting. Really isn't. I don't know how I'd make that fun at all. A lot of driving games in general suffer from the same sort of... I mean, how do you make a playthrough of something like Forza interesting? It's just going round and round in circles over and over again. But the first couple of hours of the game are generally pretty good for first impressions and for riffing off of, because it's, you know, I'm new to the game. If you're new to the game as well, it's kind of a parallel introduction. In any case, we'll see. Well, you can probably expect a Doom 3 video at some point, and I kind of want to do Dead Space 3 as well, because I've got that pre-ordered. I think it's coming here on Friday. I think it's released then. So what I'll do is I'll probably record a couple of hours, maybe 2-3 hours of my first gameplay session with that, record a live commentary, and try and turn it into a video. And like I say, maybe I can turn this into some sort of weekly series, because live commentary, I'll be honest with you, pretty easy to do. All you really have to do is talk to yourself for a couple of hours, which is, well, it's unnatural, but easy. Peru7600 says, "Hey Stu, Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat?" Why do I feel like if I answer this question, I'm going to make some enemies for life? I am at best a casual aficionado of fighting games. I'm not very good at them. I'm a bit of a button masher, truth be told. Having said that, I do still enjoy them, but of those two, I'm going to say I prefer Street Fighter. Of course, look, I like Mortal Kombat, I do, it's a fun game. But I kind of feel like Street Fighter's mechanics are more slick, and it's more colourful, and it's... I kind of like it. I think one of my favourite arcade machines is Street Fighter Alpha 3. That, to me, that's just a perfect fighting game. Jeremy V1 says, "Stu, Mr. Bean or Red Dwarf?" With Mr. Bean, you've got to kind of appreciate what Rowan Atkinson's doing. He's got a style of comedy that translates very, very well no matter what language you speak. It's all very visual humour, and that's great. But of those two, Red Dwarf by far has a more significant place in my heart. It's a series I watched as I was growing up, and, you know, it's something I still enjoy to this day. The classic episodes are brilliant. And yes, some of the later series are a bit weak, and I don't know. I mean, I like the new episodes, but it's never going to be the same as the classic ones. Even so, definitely of those two, Red Dwarf. Alfonso Navarro says, "Hey Stu, what are your thoughts on the Crysis series?" Well, I understand Crysis 3 is on the horizon. I actually have that pre-ordered, but do you know what? For some reason, I'm just not that bothered about the beta. Or beta, for my American friends. Crysis's multiplayer hasn't really been a draw for me. The original appeal of the first one was the fact that it had spectacular graphics. The expression, "but can it run Crysis," is still kind of, that floats around from time to time, indicating sort of how bleeding edge Crysis was. But I kind of feel with Crysis 2 and Crysis 3, they've gone like, well, actually, it's not very profitable being at the bleeding edge of graphics technology. Let's just make an average first-person shooter. Well, alright, average is a bit of a cruel assessment. It does have some cool stuff. I mean, the nanovision, the different armor modes and all the rest of it, it's a neat little mechanic. But personally, I'm not too excited about Crysis multiplayer. I might give it a bit of a shake, I don't know. I kind of skipped over Crysis 2. Again, I played the beta, wasn't that impressed, and thought, well, alright, fine. I still bought Crysis 2, but I just played the single player. Maybe with Crysis 3, I'll give it a shake. I don't know, I'll try the multiplayer, see what it's like. And if I'm in the habit of making gameplay videos on the reg, then I shall probably do Crysis 3 as and when that comes out. So yeah, I like the Crysis games, I've played all of them since the first one, but I don't know, I just don't get that excited about them. The Sick Chef says, "Stu, how do you feel about on-disc DLC? Do you think it's right to have companies make us pay for content that we already technically own?" Well, I think the whole sort of idea of on-disc DLC throws up some interesting questions regarding digital ownership. But I think it is a problem that's going to go away of its own accord. For the simple reason that discs are dinosaurs, really. The very need for a physical disc is, I think, something that will disappear quite quickly. And I know what you're thinking, but Stu, I like owning games, I like having a physical box. Yeah, well, for digital goods, it just doesn't make any sense. I think there are still some details to be worked out, but stuff like Steam, definitely the future. As far as retail presence, we're probably going to be looking at something along the lines of iTunes cards, gift vouchers, like scratch-off cards on physical cards, but that represent digital goods. As for the physicality aspect, I don't know where that's going to go. Because there are people who enjoy collecting games. I mean, I kind of like looking at all my Xbox games all in a row. But then, by the same token, I also kind of like looking at my big library of Steam games. It's just that that's easier to move with. But no, the whole sort of on-disc DLC thing, it's going to go away, just for the simple fact that we're looking at interference between the era of the disc and the era of DLC. It is kind of a scumbaggy thing to do, to put DLC on a disc and ship it. But from a digital ownership point of view, it's not really that different from making you pay for a download. These are strange times and there's still stuff to be worked out, but we'll get there. Mr. Cucumber says, Stu, if you were in charge of your own weapon company, what kind of weapons would you build and what would you name them? I don't know about the specifics as far as the weapons are concerned, but you can rest assured they'd all have puntastic names. Or at the very least something you can make a pun out of. So no letters and numbers, just stuff that translates well into puns, like animal names generally work pretty well. Names of other objects, like, well, I suppose the scar, the hammer, these things, easy to make puns about. So yeah, I'd take inspiration from those. CPD 0123A says S12 makes a very nice secondary in my opinion. You see, this guy gets it. Boxall says, I know you like Civilization a lot, so I've been wondering, what's your favourite game in the series and why? I like Civ 5 the best, but many people seem to like Civ 3 or 4 more, but I think they're just nostalgic. I tend to play the newest one. In fact, that's what I've been doing since the first Civilization came out. So if I fancied a game of Civ, I'd probably go for Civ 5 today. I think I'm not really a deep player of Civ. I've been playing for a long time, but really I just kind of enjoy the surface of Civilization. I don't really mean in a superficial way. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've played for hours and hours and hours, and, you know, I'll certainly play a long game, but I don't tend to sweat too much about the details of the metagame. For me, Civilization is more about the experience and just sort of, you know, the fantasy of commanding large armies and building a civilization, so I'm content to do it in the latest version. The latest version always has the prettiest graphics, and I like some of the changes. I mean, I like 1 unit per tile. I like hexagons are brilliant. There's nothing I don't like about hexagons, whether we're talking strategy games or Miranda Lawson from Mass Effect. Anyway, we've come to the end of the footage. Thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you on Friday for the Peacekeeper Guide, and I'll probably release a Doom 3 video unexpectedly at some point over the next few days. Then, at some point after that, I'll probably do Dead Space 3, and then from there, who knows? We'll see.